Oh, hello.
Oh, hi.
Jackie, where are you?
I don't know. Where am I in this?
Uh-oh.
Oh, there I am. Call roll.
Oh, hello, everyone. And welcome to Skillin It.
Skillin It.
Emoji, egg, and a pan.
Yes.
If you're there, comment and say, hi.
Say what sign you are. Say your Australia sign. Say your Australia sign. Let us know in the comments.
This is an important live stream about astrology, of which Jackie Capricorn and myself, Leo, are experts.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, there's no comments. I think maybe we should tell them it's actually not about this.
Oh, no, I see we got some.
Uh-oh, Aries. Oh my God, this is the best. Gemini kangaroo for life. Ha lols. All right, get out of here, you guys. We have a show to do. Jackie.
And who are you going to be talking to, Coral?
Jackie, we're doing one about documentary. And you and I did a lot of watching of some documentaries by these friends. And we're very intimidated. We both threw up before this.
Indeed.
Because we're going to be talking to the incredible Maya Annik Bedward, who, do you want to know a bit about her? We thought maybe we'd do this.
Tell me about her. Give me the rundown on Miss Maya.
One thing I love about Maya's bio is the term community engaged media artist. I think that's so beautiful, and it really sums up this amazing career that Maya has had. Her film, The Haircut, incredible film, very nominated for many things. I believe we watched it somewhere where it was available.
It's on YouTube. It's on the BBC channel.
On the BBC channel. It's so beautiful. It's so great. It's so personal and wonderful. She's not just in one box though, friends. She's done a lot of things. She has a company called Third Culture Media. And she's done work with the NFB and digital storytelling. You're gonna think she's 90 years old because she's done so many things. She's done really great work in the community with the NFB and the Ontario Arts Council. So you can read about her. She's got a whole website. But we're really, really excited. She's such a wonderful guest, and we're so pleased to have her. And then Hubert Davis, tell me what you thought about the hit movie Hardwood that you just watched of his. They're dying down here. I can see them, and they want to kill us right now.
That's my review.
Too bad.
like a beautiful exhale. It's amazing. Honestly, guys, if you haven't watched it, I think the link that we watched it at is available to the public. Hubert will know. And he was the first Afro-Canadian nominated for an Oscar for this film. So we have plenty of things to talk about.
We have plenty of things. Hubert's done much more than just that film, but I think it was such an important and pivotal film. And Hubert, like I mentioned, and I are working on a narrative feature of his together, which is just wonderful. And I can't wait to help bring that into the world. He's been such a generous collaborator. So they're going to kill us. We're going to stop saying nice things about them. We're gonna pop them up. We're gonna pop. Here comes one. Pop. Oh. Hi, welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
What's up, friends? What signs are you guys?
I'm a Libra. I don't know if you can.
Oh, so nice. What are the qualities of a Libra?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know anything.
Justice, balance, and justice.
Oh, okay. Well, that tracks.
Yeah, for sure.
What's Hubert?
And Hubert, what's your sign?
Oh, I'm a Scorpio.
Oh, God.
Ooh.
Like
I have no idea what that means.
Always attacking like a scorpion?
I guess so. I think so. And maybe I'm vindictive and dangerous. I don't know. I don't feel like that.
I'm going to post a comment. Someone tell us what a Scorpio is.
Yeah, please let us know. Anywho, let's get down to why we're actually here.
Never. Yes.
Talk about your guys' careers.
Yeah,
I have a question about finding your filmic voice, especially in a genre like doc, where anything and everything can go. You know, you can be a Werner Herzog, or you can do the traditional talking head B-roll situation. How did you guys develop your own documentary film voices?
Do you want me to I'll go first because I'm older, so that's when I found my voice many years ago. It was in a I pulled it out.
Oh boy!
Here it is. Here's my voice. I think that when the first film I ever made was Hardwood, which was a documentary. You know, it was a documentary that I was in. It was about my family. It's a very personal story. But I think I just really wanted to make a film. That was my goal. I really actually wanted to make a narrative film, but the doc was the only thing that kind of got any traction to get made. And I think what helped me was really not knowing the rules of documentary when I made it, because I didn't feel bound to telling it in a particular way, or what were the ways that you had to make a documentary, if that makes sense. I just felt like I wanted to tell the story in the most interesting way, and I wanted to make it feel as narrative as I could, with music and shot design and all of those things. So that's kind of like what I loved about it, and especially it was a short as well. It was 30 minutes, so you could even get away, I think, from breaking a lot of rules even more with that kind of format. So that's, for me, it was really about just wanting to make an interesting film. And I wasn't so worried about what were the restraints of documentary. It just happened to be, that was the, people who gave me the money was for a documentary. So I was going to try and make it in my own way.
And did you just a little follow-up, did you watch a lot of things? Did you have references? Did you have like a favorite filmmaker? Were you trying to emulate anyone? Or because I totally understand that beginning of your career where you don't even know the rules you're breaking. Like I remember someone telling me a reference of like films that I was making, and they're like, oh, I mean, I made dance films. And they're like, well, you must know Maya Deren, And I was like, I literally don't know anything. I'm in Winnipeg with nothing, So I think it's fascinating for you to say that, because that's such a liberating place to come from, and probably something that people watching are experiencing too. Like, how much do you go and just try to funnel yourself through existing influences, and how much should you just let yourself go,
I think the other thing is too, like, I had worked as an editor and as an assistant editor. That's how I started out in post-production. So I felt like what was good about the documentary format is there's so much of it is written, and the pace of it and how it's, the styling of it is from editorial. And so I was very much like, I got to have a lot of influence in that end of working on it, because I was editing it myself. I was editing at nights and weekends, like during my, and so I could just pour a lot of energy into that and trying to make that really craft it in the way that I wanted. But yeah, like influences for me, I think I like documentaries that felt more like narrative, and I like narrative films that feel like documentary. Like that juxtaposition of those two things. So for me, it was like in university, I remember seeing Errol Morris's Thin Blue Line. That was like a big influence of like, this can be very stylized, and the shots can be stylized, and the music, and you can still have a very strong filmmaking voice. It doesn't have to be strictly verite or strictly talking head. Like, you can mix all those things together. And I think that was one influence, before I made it.
That's interesting. And I think Maya, the interesting thing is, and we really want to talk about this with both of you and what you want to do next in your careers, but you also have been in narrative filmmaking, and I think similarly are influenced by having this sort of really cinematic and narrative style documentary too, which is interesting, kind of unintentionally with the two of you here. But would you maybe speak to Jackie's question too, about your vision? Mm-hmm.
Like I got started. I studied film, but I studied film studies. I didn't actually go to like production school. And it took me a while to kind of finally jump in and become a filmmaker myself. I actually worked at the National Film Board teaching, and I used to teach Hubert's film a lot, actually. It was
really?
Yeah. So very familiar with hardwood. It was one of my favorite to show. And
that's really cool. He's gonna slide out of the frame now. He hates it. He's like, oh no. That's really wonderful. That's really cool, Maya.
Yeah, definitely an influence on me hugely when I watched that. And so not a coincidence at all.
Yeah.
And then I worked for Clement Virgo for Conquering Line Pictures, which was more in the narrative world. And I got to see a lot of the what screenwriting was like and developing story behind the scenes there. But I was kind of going more into
at Conquering Line.
I did everything because it was a pretty small production company. So I did things from grant applications and budget, like helping with budgets, to like my favorite stuff was helping Clement write. So I like got to be in the writer's room for Book of Negroes and help him Larry work on that, which was awesome. And kind of see what that creative process was like and be able to support it in different ways. So so I got a lot of different entry points to film, but it wasn't till I decided like I really wanted to direct that I kind of jumped into it and started making work. But I think it's because I worked in narrative. I kind of watched a lot of films. I talked a lot about films. I taught films. That kind of might have given me. And doc was kind of, I got into doc. I mean, it makes sense because I studied film and political science, so a lot of doc filmmakers kind of come from that world. But I actually got into doc because I really fell in love with a very specific story, which is my feature film that I'm working on. And that's kind of what I've been pitching the film for a while. And in the process of making that film, actually my first research trip is what led me to make my first documentary. So my first research trip on my feature is what made my first short documentary. So it's kind of been more me pursuing this story that's like opened this world of doc, which I love to live in. So
it's so interesting. It's so fascinating finding how people weave their way through. It's very interesting. Was that New Orleans?
Yeah, so that was in history, and we were in New Orleans.
Great film. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, we were just my producer Kate Frazier and a good friend of mine, Sean Liliani. Like he came with his camera, and we were just shooting, just kind of seeing what's going on, because my feature doc is about the most misunderstood monster of our time, the zombie.
Hubert is very excited to hear about this.
Very excited to hear about this.
So it's been a fun project to pitch because everyone's very familiar with zombies, and like apocalypse narratives resonate a lot with us right now.
Yes.
But I'm actually looking at how very few people know the origin story of the zombie and how it's this incredibly powerful metaphor for slavery. And I'm looking at why we don't know that metaphor, and what are the kind of twists and turns and stories in Hollywood, in academia, in Haiti, that have kind of led us to this erasure of what the zombie really means, and how it actually isn't a monster, but actually an empathetic victim that we can, a lot of us can relate to. So so I went to New Orleans as my first research trip to explore voodoo that's happening down there, because voodoo is like a central part of the story.
Gosh, that's so interesting.
I have a question about
this says it all.
Wow. You already have one person ready.
Find her on your socials. But I have to tell you one thing that's very important.
Oh yeah.
Scorpios are fiercely loyal, and because they value trust and honesty, it can be easy to let them down. Uh-oh, Hubert. This is like director-producer relationship, Hubert. Oh God. Their intensity stems from their extreme passions. Scorpio falls in love, they go all in. I like that.
Yeah.
This and then this follow-up.
Wow.
Thanks, Sasha. Sasha Skillin It in the comments.
He's the host of what? He's the host of Survivor or the host of The Bachelor?
He must be Survivor. Is it? Sasha, tell us in the comments. It's just Sasha telling us things. I don't know.
I'm curious to know a bit more about your research trip, Maya. Had you already pitched your project to the people that are funding it? And also a more general question about pitching. What do you guys usually have ready when you're going to pitch to someone? Because, in the narrative world, you might have a script and maybe some executive roles filled with your collaborators, but I would imagine it's a bit different with doc. What do you have going for you when you're going to go into that big pitch meeting?
Yeah. It depends what stage you're at in the film. Like if it's very, very early stages, just a quick like elevator one-liner to grab people's attention so you can keep the conversation going. But a lot of the reason people go on research trips is to kind of collect footage to create a demo. And then the demo is what you'll kind of lead with and show people. So that's why I'd gone to New Orleans too, because it was a place where I knew I could kind of get the narrative around Vodou and also the narrative around kind of the commercialization of it and kind of African spiritual practices and kind of how American culture has usurped it for economic gain. So I knew I'd find both of that there. So that's kind of why I went to New Orleans.
Was the trip on your own dime?
Yes.
Pressing question.
I love these real questions, real talk.
Oh, it's gonna get so real.
Yeah, no, it was for sure. And that's why I think like doc, especially like it's nice you can have a small crew. And I think like one of the things I learned early on, especially because I hadn't gone to film school, is like you really need to find your teams, like people who will believe in your project and come with you and kind of be your champions, but also your life support through it all. So like I'm very fortunate that my producer who made my first short, which was actually a narrative called The Foreigner, was really excited about this project and came on board. And she's a good friend of mine too. So like going to New Orleans, like, sign me up. Like it's not hard to convince people. So we asked a friend of ours who shoots as well if he'd come and shoot with us. And and then we were fortunate enough to meet some really interesting people down there with a story to tell. So we thought, well, we got a camera. Let's make a short.
That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
Making it happen.
For sure. And what about you, Hubert? What do you usually have ready when you're about to pitch?
Well, I'm terrible at pitching, so
Right.
No, I am. I'm pretty bad. But especially like sum it up, sum it up for me and try to get people's attention. I'm just like the worst. But I think that the idea of starting to shoot is important. I think Maya's totally bang on about that, because then it gets you into kind of like engaged into it, and it gives you something to show, even if it's very short, just to give like a feel of it, I think for me it helps people see it, but it also helps me to start to work through the story. And because, I think, that part of the process is so cheap, now to be able to do, and it's just about access basically to people. And if you have that access, then that's what's going to make the good documentary anyway. So I think that's, for me, really, really important. And then on other projects, some projects have come to me, like they were already formed, like it wasn't my personal project. Like the last feature I did, Giants of Africa, that was like something like, okay, here's the project that we want to do. It was, about Masai Ujiri, but he was like one of the, basically, I don't think he was listed as a producer, but he was basically like a producer on it. So that was something more like where they were talking to a number of directors, and I just kind of gave a couple of pages of how I saw it, like what was my point of view on telling the story. And I put together some visual references, but something that was just very short, but I think was like kind of got to the point of what I wanted to do with it. So yeah, it just kind of depends, you know, whether it's your own personal thing that you're investing in or someone else is, you know, already brought you the story and then you're starting that process. But always like trying to find your point of view on it, I think is the most important thing. Like what makes it different? Why are you telling that story? And why are you engaged with it? Why are you interested in it?
I think that's a really interesting comment, because how much of that determines when and how you go forward. You know, I'm curious, because doc is so different from narrative in a sense, because you're finding the story a bit as you go sometimes. Like how much for you each personally do you say, you know what, this is my point of view, this is my perspective on it. You know, I'm not really going to start until I know this, or how much are you sort of engaging with some community that you know is interesting to you, and you might have a point of view, and you know, I feel like that's what's actually intimidating to me as a producer about doc is like, so you have no control whatsoever of anything, and it's like all it feels mysterious to me.
Yeah, it is mysterious.
Painful.
It is, yeah, it's horrible sometimes.
Oh, great.
Because you do have so little control, and especially as a director, I think that's really all you want is control, you know, of trying to like tell the story and this leads to this. And so it can be very frustrating sometimes, because especially like I made a verite documentary called Invisible City, and it was like following these stories and seeing what happened, and it's really hard. It's really hard work. And I totally, you know, I definitely have a lot of admiration for people like doc filmmakers who that's all they do, and they just, you know, buckle in and get into a story and follow it the whole way through, because it's a lot of patience and a lot of just waiting and observing human beings and seeing what happens, and you got to be kind of okay with that process and be interested in that. And so it can be tricky, especially in the verite world. I think that's probably the hardest thing.
Interesting.
Yeah, I would say like speaking to a lot of documentary filmmakers, like everyone kind of has their own process. And so some people will spend a lot of time with their characters and really shoot later in the process. Some will shoot over time. Like everyone kind of has, but I think that's the thing about documentary filmmaking is you just gotta start doing it, because it takes a while to figure out what works for you and what kind of approach you want to take to a story. So just because something works for one person's vision might not be the thing that works for you. So it's figuring that out.
That's really interesting. And I think you know, a lot of the people who've engaged with this this series are starting out or feeling it out to get into various aspects of being in the filmmaking industry. And part of what we're trying to do here is, you know, if you have questions about starting, like I think more often than not, you kind of just have to start. I don't know. Would you agree with that? And not ask for permission and not wait to pitch to someone and just like start. I mean, I know that's from a position of, you have to pay to fly yourself to New Orleans or something. But I mean, in terms of starting, having an idea, trying to put it together, beginning, you have some like very inspiring words of wisdom about that, and pretend that filmmaking's not hard.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it. You said it. It's like you're gonna kind of do it regardless, right? Like that's kind of the nature of probably all of us, of like the commonality, you know, of people in our industry is like, we're just going to make it. Like it might be, you know, we might not get the most money, or it might fail, or it might, you know, all those things are kind of irrelevant, but we are going to keep creating stuff because I don't know what else to do. Like I have no other thing to do. So I think you're right. Like, I think that's what, especially like when I try and bring people like onto set, let's say, who are my nephew is at film school down in the States, and so we brought him up on these shoots to kind of, but this feeling that you're going to get into the industry, like it's somehow like once you're in, then you're just going to be working, and it's like it doesn't really work like that. Like we're all just like it's like one project to the next, and you have to pitch and you have to hustle, and it's so there's not like it's not like this. You're in, like, oh, it's over. Like you're now in the club.
I did it.
Now you can start directing. Like no one's gonna give you permission, as you said. Like you actually have to just go out. Like what makes a director is just someone who goes out and, as Maya said, and just starts directing. It's like, guess what? Like now I'm a director because I directed this. And
and I think it's especially important when you, as a human being, from whatever reason that you have this, don't feel a sense of entitlement to everything in the world. Like those are who should really engage. And we want to hear from you. We hear from everybody already. Personally, as someone who's interested in like, you know, being responsible as a somewhat of a gatekeeper, like you have to give yourself the permission. You have to just take it, you know, and then we could talk about the financial aspects and the fact that Jackie and I were just talking before this, all of us here have parallel careers to support our careers. It sucks, but it is part of the industry. And you can, you know, I'd really be curious to speak to that, Maya, with you about how you can build yourself up. You could build your skills by building up your job and your marketable, you know, skills, keeping everything fresh. You know, I know Maya, you've been involved in so many community organizations. It's so awesome. And, you know, Hubert, you keep yourself busy directing commercials, but I feel like we don't talk about this part enough because we're supposed to be just magically really good at this job. And don't worry, we're all on social media at Cannes, la la la. But like in the background, I'm wearing like someone's dress that's too big for me. It's clamped on, you know, and my friend who works for an airline helped me get there. Like, I think we need to be like a bit.
It's a hustle. It's a hustle, you know, like that's what I think people outside of the industry don't understand. Like it's like you're just hustling all the time to figure out things, and you know, and money comes and goes with it, and you have to kind of understand, you know, that part of the job description is like we're not all like it's not steady. It's not like the easy, okay, here's the road. And I think if you're that type of personality, you probably wouldn't have got into what we do as well. There is something about the unknown that I think we must like, you know? So
Maya, you've had so many different jobs. I really relate.
That's a good.
Yes, it is. It better be, because I really relate to that.
Make us feel better, Maya.
Maya, this is a positive show.
Okay.
I told you.
I shouldn't be on it. No.
No, I'm joking. Obviously, like we're being realistic and talking about how to make it work, and sustainability is something. You know, how have you balanced that? Because I feel like you're making your own work, and you know, congratulations to both of you, because that's a victory to be still making stuff.
I really see filmmaking like, and making your own work, like your personal work, kind of a long game thing. And so sustainability is key, because it's hard to get funding. It's hard to get something off the ground. So you've got to have the resources, the money, to kind of get you through those periods where you're not actually out shooting. And so I've done a lot of like I worked at the National Film Board, working in their media tech, which unfortunately doesn't exist anymore. There, it was really, really nice. And I guess I've always kind of gravitated, even if the work hasn't been making film, I've always been lucky to be in spaces with other creatives who inspire me. So a lot of the people I worked with there were doing their own work, whether it was music or film or visual art. And then more recently, I worked at the Ontario Arts Council. I was there for many years, and that was super cool because I got an exposure to like a lot of different arts practices too, and an understanding of how those worlds work. And meet a lot of artists across the board who've very much inspired me. But yeah, it's a balance. Like I would work and then I go home and I work on my own project. And my colleagues would be like, are you really going to go home and work? And I'd be like, yeah, it's what I love to do. So, you know, half the time it was a pleasure to do, you know, the other half of the time when you're working on pitches and budgets, it's not as fun. But I think that's why it's really important to have partners who you work with who are friends, and, you know, those late nights you spend together can be really enjoyable.
and they live upstairs and
yeah.
It's so important to find the right partners for you too. And I think there's something really humbling about looking and saying, you know, I recognize these are the skills I have. This is what I'm good at. This is what I want to get better at, but this is what I need help with. And one of the reasons film is so great is that it is collaborative in that way. And there's nothing better than just being like, oh, thank God I found this person to do the Skillin It show with. Jackie, remember when I found you? I was like, oh, thank God. Hubert, how is working in commercials? It's like just totally different.
Yeah, you know, I started out, like my very first job was at this post house, and at that post house, the editors primarily cut commercials, but the guy who owned the company, he loved film, so he would cut about one feature a year, but he wanted to do more, but he also realized that commercials was a way to make money, and he could kind of fulfill his dream of having his own space and have other people come and work with him. So I think that's what, it's weird how things work, right? Because like when I got there, like I wanted to make films. I was like, I don't want to make commercials. Like I was like totally like, you know, you kind of look down on it. And I remember this guy who actually hired me. He said, well, you know, all these directors, like all your favorite directors you can think of, all direct commercials. And I was like, really? He was like, well, yeah, for the money, right? Like they direct these commercials in between their projects because then that's what allows them to. And I think I you know, that was the first time that I started exploring that and starting to see like directors who did short format stuff like music videos and like a lot of European directors that I really started liking their work, who then later got into features. And I was just like, I kind of got inspired with that format, like that could be a format where you could try stuff and hone your craft and work on it. And also to make money. Like there's no, you know, I think you have to be very pragmatic about it, especially when I left editing and I just started directing full time. I had to be pragmatic. I remember talking to someone at the NFB, the first producer I worked with, Peter Starr, the legendary Peter Starr, amazing name and amazing individual. But he was like, oh, like you've got a job. Like he was like very much like, you got to have another job. Like you cannot just direct documentaries. And this is a guy who,
oh God,
look, like, I'm just being honest with you. Like it's no way to make a living. And this, to date myself, this is probably before like reality TV really kicking into gear, where I guess you could make good money doing that as well. But I just kind of decided, like, you know, I gotta do another thing. I still want to direct. I don't want to edit anymore. I just want to direct full time, but I need another paying thing to do that. And that ended up being commercials. So yeah, it's worked out for me, but you know, you've got to kind of still balance that still with the projects you want to make.
It's interesting. I mean, you've also, even in that, you're finding balance. Like I remember seeing that you did like a sort of PSA commercial about toxic masculinity, you know? Yeah. It's like, it doesn't all have to be like Chevy commercials, I guess, you know? And I think one thing that's really struck me about you, Hubert, is that directors directing, like that is a massive skill. It's like a muscle that has to be exercised, you know? And I think that's such an interesting way that you've been able to do that.
Yeah, I really enjoy it. I think that's, Maya said that earlier. It's like when you enjoy something, then it's not really work. Like you can complain about it. Like I'll be like, oh, that shoot was so hard. It was so terrible, blah, blah. But the truth is, like, I really enjoyed it. Right. And that's why I keep doing it, because it's fun. Right. Like I love production. I love getting together, you know, people that you work with and like taking their talents and being able to like that stuff is really exciting, and it's really fun to do. So I've never kind of I've never felt like been directing something and felt like it wasn't where I wanted to be. It might not be the particular project I wanted to be making at the time, but like the actual job of what it is really fun.
Okay, guys, you knew it was coming. It's the mystery guest.
It's just a question mark.
Do you recognize this question mark from your childhood? No, I'm just kidding. I'm gonna look at Skillin It. Hello.
Another champion producer.
Yay.
Hey.
I needed more producers on this call.
I know. Hubert, what projects did you not want to work on, Hubert?
They know. Everyone knows when they were in the room.
Yeah, not the ones that took you to England and around the world, I hope.
Definitely not. Those ones I enjoyed. That was fun.
And Ms. Maya, it's lovely to see your face. How you doing?
Good.
Yay.
Yeah. How's your zombie project?
She's gonna make it any minute now.
It was great until we had to stop production. Yeah, we were in LA when everything kind of got closed down, so we had to come back.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah,
we
we just started shooting. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I'm so sorry to hear that. I didn't realize you guys were. Where are you in production? How far along are you now?
We've done. It was our first chunk of shooting, so we did get some great footage and interviews, but we were supposed to go to Haiti later this year again, and I don't think we'll be going back for a while. So
No. I think I was asked a few questions, and I might be on a panel in a couple weeks just about how you pivot and shift right now in this time. And so I think we've been thinking about how to put things on hold and what do we do and dropping in cameras. But I think maybe this is an opportunity to push us even more creatively.
Yeah.
This is a welcome time for Mr. Davis, who loves to always think outside of the box and pivot and shift, right? I think I've spent much time trying to get into his head, and in the end, he always finds a way to communicate it. But we always kind of look at him with big eyes the first time I think he throws an idea our way. But they're always absolutely worth exploring, worth doing, and I think they're always innovative. So there you go, challenge.
It's hard. That's what I was saying. I'm so bad at pitching because, it's when it's there, and then it's that part of the process is always tough. But I love the making of it. I think that's the thing I realized is the making of it and the editing of it. Like that's the sweet spot for me. But the talking about it beforehand to people who can give you the money to make it is not. That's not my sweet spot.
Right. So my process with Hubert is always just trust whatever it is he's saying, even if I don't understand it, and we go forward. That's pretty much what we've done.
We're going to talk about this offline because I'm producing Hubert's next narrative feature.
Yeah,
I'm going to call you after. Well, this is the great Leah Barron, who is the queen, I'd say, of the NFB. Would you agree?
No, I don't think so. I'd say Anita Lee's the queen.
On this Victoria Day weekend.
Okay, yes.
Announcing the new queen, the best.
There we go.
I'm sorry, I don't know what that is. I asked her if she had a question for either of you. Do you have one?
I mean, I do have questions. They're more, I think, in line with what we just started on in terms of, touching on the zombie project for Maya, because actually I was just genuinely curious. I've seen Maya pitching this to Breakthrough at several different points, and so I was really curious to kind of understand where she was and how that process has actually been in terms of trying to, because I think when I first saw you, it was very early, and I think one of the things we talked about was how do you take something that is so broad in scope in terms of what you're trying to tackle and find a way to make it malleable. So just maybe if you could tell me what's happened for you in that process of actually getting to production.
Yeah, I think I pitched the film very early on to you briefly, at Hot Docs once.
The Breakthrough program, wasn't it?
Yeah, but even before that, maybe.
Okay.
But yeah, a Breakthrough was kind of when I was finally honing what I was trying to put together. But yeah, it was it was a long process. Like, I think with storytelling, there's always so many avenues you can go with something. And part of figuring out your story is really figuring out why you're doing it and why it's so important to you. And knowing that and being very focused on that so you don't lose sight of it. But it's also like acknowledging what resonates with people. So the more you pitch, I found, even though it's really hard and you have to have a thick skin, the more you see people's reactions to different parts of your pitch. And you can add information, take information away, and it kind of like shows you what sticks and what doesn't stick. And that really helps you understand how this might resonate in a broader context too, and who your audience is and why it might be relevant today. So yeah, pitching for me was a huge learning experience. I did the breakthrough program, which was incredibly helpful because you have experts like Leah who come in. Most of us are like, what do you use? Ascending?
Yeah. Oh yes, emerging.
Yeah.
We've changed emerging artists to ascending artists.
I like it. I like it.
Does it mean when you're established that you're submerged? Or are we just kind of shrinking into like?
Oh no!
Oh, he's fully submerged.
I'm going to use that too. Ascending and submerged.
Oh, he's submerged.
You really see the bottom coming up at you. You're like, I'm out of here. Bye, guys. But you can go to sleep on your pile of money that you have.
Yeah. Yes.
Submerged in all your cash.
It's fake money. Virtual money.
Oh my God. I wish we could have a whole show with Leah, but we got to kick her out now.
Okay.
I'm off. It's so nice of you to do this. Thank you so much.
Oh, I'm so happy to see you guys. Thank you for having me. Good luck.
We'll have a real hang in real time.
Yeah.
And we'll also live stream that.
Yeah. Good luck, guys. Talk soon.
Thanks, Leah. Okay, guys. Isn't that nice? Did you like that guest? Look at what Sasha has to say about it.
Yeah.
Great.
Sasha's feeling it.
She's great. She is so great. She's
yeah.
Again, like I was talking about, you got to find those partners who are with you and they support you, and you can kind of like just vent, and if things are they're really, really key people, and I think producers don't get enough credit for what they do to try and support because we're not always the easiest to deal with, I'm sure sometimes, but
oh well, I mean, you're a dream. So we're actually
production yet, Coral.
I know, because I have to get that going. I'm just kidding. We're just pitching. I actually think we're totally running out of time, which feels insane to me.
Yeah.
I really wanted to address something that Jackie and I were very curious about, which is working with your families.
Yes.
How was that, and why would you ever do it? It's wonderful. I think it's just such a deep way to be really honest in your work. It's an interesting choice, and with great results. I think you're both so honest and genuine and authentic, and it's like, wow.
Yeah, I'm curious to know if you guys had any checks and balances in terms of having your family be the subject, and even yourself, Hubert, being a subject in Hardwood. How did you avoid any unnecessary emotional harm or stirring the pot more than it needs to be stirred?
I really didn't avoid it. I think I just went headlong into it, and again, I was so desperate to make a film. Even though I didn't want that to be the one, I really didn't at the beginning. I did not want to make a documentary about my family, but it was again it was I was saying it was the only thing that was resonating with people when I would pitch things. It was like, oh, your dad was Harlem Globetrotter. That must have been so great. And that, I guess, that question about oh, your dad was played professional basketball, and that must have been so great. And it's well, let me tell you the whole story. And you'll kind of understand it more. And again, I didn't want to put myself in it and kind of all those things that you fight with. But yeah, I think there's emotional impact in doing it. And you just have to make that decision early on that, look, this is what's going to happen. and it's going to be really hard. And there's going to be, there's definitely things that I heard that I didn't want to hear. But that was part of the process. It was like, all right, like, we gotta get into this. And if we're going to do it, we kind of have to go all the way with it. We can't, just kind of, documentaries that kind of like are on the tip of things, but never really get, and you gotta go there, I think, for them to really work. And that's probably one of the hardest things about documentaries, not even with your family, with just other, people, because these are people, they're not actors who are coming there to explore something. You're, getting into their lives, and they have trust in you and how you're presenting them and all those things. I find that's the kind of most difficult part about docs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think making docs requires people to be very vulnerable, and that's how, when people show everything, that's how you find meaning in their story and in life. So it is really hard. And then when it's your family and you have the other dynamics, in addition to being the director, it's definitely a whole other level. So making a film about my family was tough, and like part of the main character, my father, is quite stubborn. So
what's his
hard to direct. My stubborn dad, that came through a lot, and I learned a lot of stuff through other family members I spoke to, and things I decided not to show in the film. And the film itself, like, the process of making it requires so much like research and learning about people and asking hard questions. And obviously all that doesn't make it into the film, but that work itself kind of like opens up new questions and like forges new conversations to happen in the family that, like, in my family, for example, we just never talked about what it was like to experience racism when they first immigrated in the 50s. And I learned a lot, and like family members had never had these conversations with each other before. And and then after the film got made and was screened, my dad would get phone calls from friends or people he knew back then. Like, the impact of the film was far-lived. He learned a lot of things that I think actually shocked him, that he didn't know was happening at that time when he first immigrated. The stories people would tell him. So yeah, I think it's hard because it doesn't just happen in a vacuum. Life's happening around the making of the film, and it was like there were a lot of things that you wonder, should I go there? Should I show this? And yeah, I mean, that's why I think, like, I love Hardwood so much, because it's just so, like, it just goes in, and that film, I think, is so powerful for that reason. And yeah, I don't know how you did it, Hubert, but
I think it was also because it was my first film, so I didn't know if I was going to get another chance. I was like, this could be it. I better go all the way, because it was so hard to make, to get the money for the first one. I was like, if this is it, like, I got to go all in. But yeah, it's you definitely. Yeah, it's hard, and you have a lot of regret and a lot of things you struggle with, what you put in, what you don't put in. I think that kind of just lives with you, and
interesting. Yeah, how could you have regrets when you're nominated for an Oscar? You want to win, or what?
No, not about that. Like, because that stuff is all outside of the decision-making process. That's all out of your control anyway,
Yeah, I'm just being a dink.
Yeah. No, that made it definitely, like, worth it for them. It was like, see,
crazy.
I know what I'm doing.
I get it's like such a surreal experience, and I wish we could talk about that all day. We have a question of where can we watch your films. I'll make sure I get any public links and anything you guys are comfortable putting up, and I'll put it in the YouTube thread, and we can address that for sure.
Yeah.
Jackie?
Yeah, I have one last question for you guys that touches upon a little bit what you were saying about sharing personal stories through documentary. I've noticed, as myself being a Black ascending filmmaker, that
on our way up.
Yeah, I'm on my way up so that I can celebrate. I've noticed that documentary is a genre that it's the thing that I'm most encouraged to do. I think this is because it's probably one of the more accessible genres of filmmaking. You just need, at the end of the day, you just need a good subject / story and the camera, and you're good to go. But more specifically, I found that I'm encouraged to make doc because they want me to, share my hardships as a first-gen Black Canadian.
Yeah.
And I often feel like I feel like how can I say this? I often feel like this because the industry kind of feels like I can't do anything else. Like they expect little else from me because I'm a certain type of person. Yeah. And I've been struggling to overcome that. I end up, usually trying to defy their expectations by doing other genres. Have you guys felt that pressure, expectation to make certain kinds of documentary stories, or even only make films in documentary because of your identity?
Wow, that's an amazing
That's
question.
a heavy question.
No, you put it so well. You put it so well. That's
I feel like part of it too with documentary is, a big thing is access. And so people will always, in the industry, will always encourage you to like we want you to tell a story that no one else can tell. You're the only person who can tell the story. And that's why you have to be the director. And therefore, even though you don't have a huge body of work, you are the one who uniquely has access to the story. And so that's why they tend to want you to do something personal, because you might have. And it's frustrating if that's not the kind of, you've got other stories that you want to tell. And I guess what I would say to that, whether you're working in doc or narrative, is just, know that there are other stories you're uniquely poised to tell. It doesn't have to be your personal community. And it's just work on that and work on your voice and show them that. And it sucks. We always have to prove ourselves. And it's this upward what am I trying to say?
Uphill battle.
All the time.
Yes, absolutely.
But you have to show I uniquely am the only person to tell this other story, and that's why I need to direct this. And so making more work. I'm going to plug arts councils because I worked at one, but I find arts councils is the world where, if you are an emerging filmmaker, you can find money to do narrative work, usually it's not enough to do a feature, but to do short work to kind of work on your craft that way. So you're not pigeonholed into the doc world. Yeah. But doc, I want to say something about doc, because a lot of people see it as this one thing. And I think more and more with the technology available to us, doc is an incredibly creative space to work in, and the types of stories you can tell and the hybrids you can work on really offer actually an incredibly rich space to work in. So I feel sometimes people that think doc is dry, but it doesn't have to be.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I think something about what you're saying is related to money and risk taking. And the thing that worries me that I think producers should fight for is, having a bigger budget to work with and not having to prove yourself again and again and again to get that bigger budget, whereas potentially someone who started ahead, in other ways, wouldn't be required to show that level of being ready to direct something big, So I think we need to be pushing, we as producers and as filmmakers just need to be pushing the funding agencies and saying, why not this, me now? Hubert and I have a dystopian future world project, and it's his unique perspective. And I think we are going to fight very hard for that, to get that made, documentary tends to be working at a little bit of a lower budget. And, if you don't want to be making doc and you want to try something else, I think we have to push those norms, and we have to keep pushing them, because it's, any gatekeeper can do their little part. And I think we can affect change in that way.
And one thing that I think, Jackie, in your question that I think is really important is not to allow there are people in positions of power who might be, you know, exec producers that you meet with, or, you know, or anyone who basically can give a green light or help you, or you think, you know. But I think it's really what I realized like early in my career is that I would often I was probably listening a bit too much. If that makes sense. Like I was listening to other people because they would say this and this person would say that, and they're looking for this and they want this. But, and again, this might be a sweeping generalization, but I think that, you know, as creators, like our job is to figure out what we want to make. And then might fit into those things. But if it ever comes it just can't come from that end. Like I've never had a good experience where their end is saying this is what it should be, and you're the person go out and do it, and I go out and do it, because I'm not really fully invested in that. And I think that's, you know, kind of what you're alluding to, is someone saying, oh, you should do this because I see you as this, so you should make this project. Is like, you know yourself, if you're like, I'm not that person. Like I am not into that at all. That I have no point of view on it. And I think that's the thing that you kind of struggle with, you know, throughout your career, because it's, you know, we all want to pigeonhole people and say, no, this person does this, to make it kind of easy for ourselves. But I think you do have to stay true to what you're interested in, what your aesthetic is, what you really are passionate about, because those are the projects that are going to make the difference, because you would do them no matter what, you know. And it's not because someone said, oh, look, I'll give you money if you do this project. Or if they do, that you still have a way in that's interesting enough for you, that's so personal to you, that you found a way into it. Like with Hardwood, is I was like, I don't want to make this, but if I make it the way I want to make it, then I'm into this. And that's the decision making that I think you have to make for yourself, is like, how do I see myself in this, as opposed to them dictating.
How do you deal with it's really hard to be rejected, be told you're this thing. I mean, I think that's part of becoming a career artist, is dealing with rejection about yourself and what you want to do. How do you both deal with that? Like, any tips? Don't say drinking. No, I mean, it's like, you have to just give yourself, you know, the ownership over that. And I think it's such amazing advice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's part of it. Unfortunately, it's part of it. But you have to enjoy the rest of the process enough that becomes okay. And I think sometimes I just if I get like a big, you know, like rejection of something that I really like wanted to do, that I was like super passionate about, or I've been working for, I have to give myself time to get over that. Kind of, it's like a breakup, I guess. It's getting dumped all the time, like where you're like, that sucks, and you can like listen to like a Sade album, just like be in that space for a while, and then it's okay, you know. That was like a reference.
Sade.
Yeah. Anyway, just
always
to
there
get
for
myself
us.
a little bit further.
You know, I'm there with you. It's fine.
Yeah.
We look great.
Yeah. But yeah, you have to give yourself time to get over it, and then you just start that process again, and you're like, okay, all right, but if you don't get over it, you know, then it's hard to start creating again, I think.
Yeah. Well, I'm devastated to end this, because this has been I knew it was going to be so great, and it's been out of control. Jackie and I are going to cry after this. You've both been so generous with your time and so honest, and it's like, we're so grateful. A lot of people are starting to look at these, and I think this will be a really refreshing, you know, conversation to hear. And we might have questions and stuff afterwards, so we'll follow up potentially. We'll put a Spotify Sade playlist, I guess. For that, we could talk about the ones that you want on there, Hubert. And we'll make sure we have some links to check out these great films. And I'm so sad this is ending for some reason. Okay, we're going to say goodbye to you guys, and we're going to show Jackie's Corner and announce our guest for next week.
Yeah,
bye, guys.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Bye, guys.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Jackie, I can't even handle it. What is going on? Aw, thank you, Tamara.
My heart is warm. I am motivated.
Yeah.
I hope you guys are too.
Yeah, such inspiring people, such a great team as well, and they had so many good things to say. Well, I won't ask you for your takeaways because I think we had so many and it's so great.
Yeah, I mean, he just said it, but I feel like that's my biggest takeaway.
Yeah.
Of coming at projects from your own perspective, even if other people are trying to force a certain perspective on you, or think they understand what your perspective is going to be on a certain thing, but making sure you're taking the time to ask yourself, you know, is this something I actually want to do? Does this fall in line with what kind of creator I want to be? And I think that, you know, coincides with what again Hubert was saying about believing in yourself. Like, we would not be in this industry if we didn't, more than most people, believe in ourselves. If that makes sense. And honestly, it's nice to even though, you know, we can joke and be like, oh yeah, we believe in ourselves more than the usual mass of human beings. We oftentimes need to be reminded that we do believe in ourselves and we do think we're capable, especially during a time like this. So that's really good. Biggest takeaway.
Jackie, stop making me cry all the time.
Oh, no.
That's so well put in. Thank you for your questions today. It was such a wonderful conversation.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
So we've heard your feedback about wanting to know a bit more about working with producers and with pitching and when you should be pitching. So after our Jackie's Corner, which we have technologically advanced and have learned how to screen it inside this. Oh God, am I going to be able to do it? I'm so nervous now. We're going to show a 5-minute wonderful video by Jackie's Corner, and then we'll come back. We'll pop back out. We've gone over our time limit, but you know what? There's no cops here.
There's no rules in the We're in the wild, wild west of the internet. Live streaming is not, you know.
We don't even give a care.
We don't give a care.
Oh my God. Okay, this involves me trying to share my screen. Don't say your thoughts out loud. Hold on. Okay, watch this. Now I'm going to make us go away.
Okay.
Here's Jackie's Corner for this week, and that'll be posted online as well. Comment, tell us what you want to hear, what you want to see, and we'll pop that in.
Who you would love to see on Jackie's Corner as well.
Oh, that's great. Suggestions for ascending and not submerged artists.
Yes, not yet submerged.
Not yet submerged. All right, we're going to try and do this. Oh, I figured this out, I think. Okay, I'm going to mute us, and here comes Jackie's Corner.
All right.
Guys, hold on. I messed it up. Can you hear it now? Jackie, was there no sound? Oh,
there was no sound.
I'm so proud of myself. Okay, let me try one more time.
Okay.
All right, guys. Oh my God, what a nightmare. Where's tech support? Okay, tell me if it's working now.
Okay.
She won the live pitch competition at the Regent Park Film Festival last week.
All right, forget it.
I love how your little like exhale is like Listen,
Oh, guys.
it would not
All
be a live stream without a technical difficulty or two, okay? And
Okay, forget it.
that
It's
was the
whatever.
that was the perfect teaser for y'all to pop off here when we're done. Go watch the video that will be on the YouTube channel as well as on Instagram. So don't worry. That was just a teaser.
That's a teaser. It's great.
A muted teaser.
We'll put it up and tell us who it's featuring.
It's featuring my good friend and talented filmmaker extraordinaire, Courtney Jackson. Look at that. See? Technical difficulties. We're gonna continue, okay? Anyways, yes, Courtney, she's a documentarian. Her short film, Wash Day, had its premiere at the TIFF Next Wave this February, before everything happened. And it's a fantastic documentary. We just chatted about what it was like being like a one-woman film crew. She did everything by herself, amongst other interesting things. So yeah,
okay. Don't spoil it, but
I won't.
There is a shout out to a couple of great organizations, including Lyft, which I'm very involved with.
Yes.
And working with film. So, all right, okay. Who do we have next week? The people wanted pitching. We're going to give them to the best producers in the biz. We're going to be really open to talking about all things producing. They both work in fiction and documentary. Also super celebrated filmmakers, Lauren Grant and Dan Beckerman.
Put up the graphic. Put up the graphic.
Oh, look at them.
Look at them.
Next week, 3 p.m. to 4-ish.
To 4-ish. Yeah.
I'm going to crack this code. I don't think I can do it, actually. Well, we'll see.
It's okay. We'll figure it out.
Guys, I love learning things. Just like you.
Exactly.
Sometimes you fail. I think this was a wonderful episode. Thanks for everybody for your comments. Comments. Write to us on all the things. We'll post the links and let us know what you want to see in future episodes.
Yeah.
Bye, Jackie.
Go watch Jackie's Corner.
Go watch Jackie's Corner. I'm going to put it up right now. I have a draft saved.
Exactly.
Okay. Bye, Jackie.
Guys. Bye, Cora.
Bye, Capricorn. Moon rising, sun shining.
That is me indeed.
I'm so sorry about that.